Hello, my name is Jeanette Knutson-Stone, and I'm the author of Alexis Island, Growing Up in the Tropical Paradise of Key West. Right now I'm sitting at Fort Zachary Taylor on the island, where many people come to watch the sunset, which is about to happen shortly. There's a lovely beach here. Residents and tourists both come to relax, to maybe picnic. I can see there's a wedding at the moment going on up the road. And it is also a place where a lot of activities go on. Just last month I was sitting here watching the powerboat races. There's a lot that goes on in Key West, and when I first came here 9 years ago, I had no idea that I was going to be writing about it. I had no idea that I was going to be moving to Key West. But both things happened, and when I thought about writing about this incredibly interesting, marvelous, magnetic, creative island, I thought the best way to do it and to capture the essence of living on an island would be writing it through the eyes of a young boy living on a sailboat with his mom, dad, and his sister. Alexis first sailed into, or I first met him when he came into the marina from the anchorage on the water taxi that his mom and dad run. He was with his sister Clementine, and we started talking, and then that was the beginning of the idea. I brainstormed possibilities, things that would interest Alexis, and then from there I dug further to get information by interviewing people, and that was such a wonderful thing to do. I love talking to people, so I love their stories. The first person I interviewed was Tom Hambright, and he is the historian at our library, the Monroe County Library on Fleming Street. And he told us that this island was once underwater, and it became an island once the waters retreated. You can see that the water is right here. And being coral rock, it's very, very hard, so it makes you think about, well, how do you plant trees and shrubs? And it's very difficult. In fact, if you want to plant trees and shrubs in your backyard, you have to get an anvil or a pick and dig away. A jackhammer is the best and quickest way to dig through that rock. Then you fill it with soil and plant your tree, and voila. But you can imagine the roots can't go down through the rock, they have to go out sideways. And I have a tree in my backyard that is huge, but its root system travels along the top, through the dirt on top of the earth. As you can probably figure out, being an island, many people make their living from the sea. Of course, there's fishermen and sports fishermen who take people out on boats to go fishing. And there are other people like Lobster Lee, who dives for lobster. He used to use traps with bait to catch them, but for the last 2 years, he has dived for them. He can go down and be underwater for an hour on a full tank. And when he's down there, he goes down with a tickle stick, which is about this long. He nudges the lobster out with a tickle stick, and then they go into his net, and he can fasten that and stay down there, as I said, for about an hour, collecting as many lobster as possible. Up at 5 and on the water before sunrise, Lobster Lee knows where to look for the best lobster catch. So he for 30 years has studied them and can tell by looking at their feet where they've been. When Lobster Lee finally gets too old to dive, he told us, he's going to go back to trapping. Captain Victoria is a boat captain who knows a lot about mangroves, which are referred to as the nursery of the sea, and she knows a lot about dolphins, and she likes to communicate with dolphins. So she takes people out on her boat to swim with the dolphins, and Alexis and Clementine and some friends and I did that, and it was such a fun experience. It's believed that dolphins are friends of humans and that they actually have healing powers. So people who are sick or have disabilities love to go out and swim with the dolphins. They live in family groupings called pods, and they communicate with each other using signals that are kind of like human singing sounds. So they recognize each other through the sounds that they make. And they are such lovely, lovely creatures. We just had a wonderful time that day. Most cities and communities have museums that depict their history and culture. Perhaps you've visited a museum in your area. One of our favorite museums is the Mel Fisher Museum. Mel Fisher was an amazing person. He was a musician, engineer, and diver, and he had a dream. That dream was to discover the wreck of the sunken galleon, the Etosha. The Etosha in 1622 was on its voyage from Havana, Cuba. Remember I said Cuba's 90 miles away, back to Spain, and they got caught up in the first hurricane of the season and unfortunately sank together with the treasure of gold and silver chains, bars, jewelry, emeralds, pearls, coins, all kinds of unimaginable treasure. And although many attempts have been made to discover that treasure, no one succeeded until Mel Fisher on June 20th, 1985, when his divers brought up the first gold chains and bars. That was such an amazing day because for every day for 15 years, Mel Fisher got up and every morning he said, "Today's the day." So he succeeded and found that treasure 363 years after the Etosha sank. And it was found over this way at the Marquesa Keys, and just an incredible, inspiring story. So the Mel Fisher Museum is a wonderful place to visit to learn all about that and those times. Just imagine having your home on the water, not on land. I'm going to read to you a little excerpt so maybe you can get an inkling of what that might be like. Every morning, Alexis wakes to the sound of seagulls chattering in the new day as they go about their morning scavenge. He may be lucky enough to see a graceful split-tailed frigate dive into the ocean for the breakfast his keen eyes have spied from hundreds of feet above the water. Every night he closes his eyes to the bright shining stars that twinkle above and the lights that glitter and sparkle in Key West. Now and then, an osprey, a highly skilled fisherman, lands on the mast of Alexis' floating home and bids him good night. Both day and night, the ocean breezes create gentle waves that continuously lap his world. When a tropical storm evolves into a hurricane, however, life on board becomes uncomfortable and dangerous. We live in what's known as Hurricane Alley. That means hurricanes are attracted to this part of the world. And we haven't had any severe threats since 2005 when we had 4 hurricanes move through here: Dennis, Katrina, Rita, and Wilma. We got through those, but Wilma in particular caused a storm surge which caused quite a bit of damage on the island. But the island has recovered, and it's just amazing in the last few years to see how everything has flourished and grown back. This is a picture of what the island looks like when the howling, huge winds, which sometimes sound like a train roaring through. And it's pretty fierce. One time I ventured down to the marina to make sure a boat was secure, and I had to hold onto the pylon. That's how incredibly strong these winds are. In 1998, when Hurricane Georges was thundering towards Key West, Alexis' dad, Arnaud, had to protect his family, so he came up with a plan to sail up to the Everglades, which is north here, and more on the mainland of Florida, and he sought refuge there for his family and his home in amongst the mangroves. He knew that the mangrove roots would cushion the boat from the fierce winds, and he knew that the 40-foot mangroves would protect them from high seas. Just to the south of Key West, in fact 7 miles to the south, is the large coral reef, and there's good and bad about that. It helps to protect Key West from big seas and a lot of major activity that might be going on out there in the water. But it also has been hazardous for boats, particularly many, many years ago, before they had more sophisticated equipment. And many boats would lose their way and get washed up on the reef, and you would hear on the island, "Wreck ashore!" And islanders would run out there, would hurry out there, because if they got to the wreck first, they could keep whatever they salvaged. So Key West, a lot of people in Key West made their fortunes that way, and at one point Key West was the richest community in Florida. Every year the race to the reef is reenacted. People who own boats here have the opportunity to race to the reef, but not to salvage, of course, just to be able to claim that they have the fastest boat in Key West if they win. That's their prize. These are just some of the stories and information found in Alexis Island, growing up in the tropical paradise of Key West. There's so much more to read about, and I hope you will. Stories like how Key West became known as the Conch Republic. I'm not going to tell you now, but you can read about it, and it's a pretty interesting story. At the end of this video, you'll find a set of worksheets that accompany each chapter of Alexis Island. They are multidisciplinary. They might touch on music or social studies, language arts, science, math, and they're pulled out of information in the book. So each one begins with a vocabulary list, which you can do anything you want with that list. There are many possibilities, but these activities and worksheets are great for use in the classroom and at home. The music that you hear in this video is performed by a local group that has been performing for 40 years, and they are called the Bubba System. They are a fantastic group, and when I asked them if they would perform this music and accompany me on this video, they said, "Sure, what do you want?" And I said, "Well, instrumental music, but something that represents the island." Well, the island is so diverse with its culture, and it's so diverse with all the different influences here that there actually is not a specific island sound in music. So they have come up with what you're hearing now, and I think it's perfect for this video. Thank you for spending this time with me at Fort Zachary Taylor. You can probably tell that it's got darker. The sun is just a beautiful globe on the horizon out here, and I'd like to just watch the last of this day and say goodbye to this day. If you want to contact me, feel free. You can find me on Facebook, and my contact information is also documented on this video. Thank you again, and hope to see you here in Key West. Have fun with reading the book, and have fun doing the worksheets. And as I said, hope to see you here in Key West one day.